خذني يا طير لا تواخذني، خذني ع فلسطين خذني يا طير لا تواخذني، رجعني على بلادي عيني بأهلي وولادي، رجعني على بلادي عيني بأهلي وولادي، خذني ع فلسطين خذني ع فلسطين خذني.
تاج عالراس في العين وفي قلوب الناس، عشق المجروح وجوا الروح مع الله.
وانا مهما رحت ولفيت زي حضنك والله ما لقيت، كل واحد شافك سمى وقال ما شاء الله.
فلسطين تاج عالراس في العين وفي قلوب الناس،
عشق المجروح وجوا الروح مع الله.
وانا مهما رحت ولفيت زي حضنك والله ما لقيت،
واحد شافك سمى وقال
ما شاء الله.
Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing? You guys having a good conference? I can't hear you. Yalla. Yes. My name is Maysa Marrar. I am a Palestinian from Beit Dukko, Shamal al-Quds. And I am a part of Healthcare Workers for Palestine and a founder of the Palestinian Feminist Collective. It is my honor, really, to be up here with all of you and to have and lead this discussion with some amazing healthcare workers and doctors that have been really instrumental in the movement, not just the past 2 years, but for a very long time. And I wanted to start just by situating who's up here, who we are, what's going on. Healthcare Workers for Palestine is an amazing phenomenon that really only manifested after October 7th. It has risen in countries around the world. We have about 41 chapters in the US. We are in Ireland, the UK, Belgium, and South Africa. And it really is a grassroots initiative with health workers, not just people that have licenses, but people that contribute to sustaining life and healing. We manifested as a response to the desecration of the healthcare system in Gaza. And we also function in a way where we see the links in our healthcare systems here. And when we see that our patients are not able to access medicines or procedures or tests, this is a direct result of the US complicity in this genocide. And really how it's really a threat to our harm, to our oath that we have taken to do no harm. And so we can't, in good consciousness, practice medicine in a society and a system that makes us all sick. And so throughout this weekend, we have heard how every single one of Gaza's 36 hospitals has been attacked, with no fuel to run them, with every hospital director detained or killed, and with thousands of healthcare workers targeted in just the last 22 months. Gaza's health system has been deliberately dismantled. The numbers are staggering, and yet they never seem to be enough to force the world to end this ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people. Our histories remind us why, though. Many of our movement leaders have been healers, pediatricians, physicians, surgeons. From George Habash to Abdulaziz Rantisi, it is no coincidence that those who sustain life also sustain resistance. And so to target our hospitals, our doctors, our nurses, is to target the very lifeline of our people. The truth is embodied in the story of Dr. Adnan al-Bursh, Gaza's leading orthopedic surgeon. He was a doctor who treated generations of Palestinians, saving lives through wars, sieges, and endless shortages. When hospitals were bombed, he worked by flashlight. When supplies were blocked, he improvised to mend broken bodies. And yet, earlier last year, he was tortured to death in Israeli detention. His killing was not just the loss of a physician, but the deliberate destruction of a pillar of Gaza's medical community. A message that even those who rebuild our bodies are marked for elimination. For some, Israel's US-backed war on healthcare may appear shocking. The bombing of hospitals, the execution of ambulance workers, the disappearance of Gaza's medical leadership. But for Palestinians, this violence is far too familiar. We remember, for example, Razan al-Najjar, the 20-year-old nurse who was shot and killed in 2018 while rushing to save a protester during the Great March of Return. Her killing was not an exception. It was a rehearsal for the total obliteration we are witnessing today. And yet, we have seen the unwavering resilience of doctors who refuse to leave their patients, who refuse to be frightened by the occupation forces, and who've shown us what true heroes look like. And so, when we look to Gaza as the moral and political compass of Palestine, it is no accident that healthcare workers stand at its very center, leading us with both the struggle and sacrifice. And so now I'm honored to introduce to you all our amazing panelists that we have here, people that have been working really hard and day in and day out for the liberation of Palestine. We have Dr. Thaer Ahmed, who is a part of PAMA and has been instrumental in providing care in Gaza, but also in the evacuation of people and children and providing and allowing them to get health care here in the United States. We also have Dr. Karama, who is also a pediatrician and a founding member of Doctors Against Genocide. And her voice has really been instrumental in the past 2 years in advocating for Palestine and standing up in the halls of injustice. And we also have Dr. Jabour, who's also been instrumental. He has been instrumental in also leading Doctors Against Genocide and showing us that the connections to the physicians in Palestine are instrumental for our complete liberation. And last but not least, we also have Dr. Jill Stein, who will be sharing some remarks. So it is my honor to introduce you all and to bring this panel to life. And I'm really excited to get this conversation going because as healthcare workers, as healers, we're constantly looking for ways, what can we do? We've taken an oath to do no harm, and by an extension of that, we want to heal, we want to protect, we want to preserve life. And so this first question is for you, Dr. Thaer. In Gaza, doctors have been on the very front line of the struggle, often described as heroes standing in the face of tanks with nothing but a white coat or scrubs. You served at Nasser and Al-Aqsa hospitals and are now being denied entry back to Gaza. From your perspective, what does healthcare in Gaza look like right now? And in your time there, what moments of experiences have most profoundly shaped your understanding of what it means to practice medicine under siege?
Thank you very much. I appreciate being on this panel. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you to the organizers of this People's Conference. It's been an incredible conference so far, and I'm glad we're able to discuss this really important subject. There's one thing I think I'd probably start with, just so that we can all understand. There's this notion that hospitals are under attack and that doctors have been killed. But it's important to take a step back and look at it from a bird's eye view. The Israeli military's policy is against life in Gaza. They are attempting to make sure that life is not sustainable and that people cannot remain there. And so if you look at any sector, it's the way that that policy is being manifested by the Israeli military that you see the devastation that we see. The health sector is one aspect of that. Additionally, the education sector is something else, right? We've seen the campuses be destroyed. We've seen the teachers and the professors all be attacked, killed, or abducted. We can look at farmland in Gaza, preventing people from having the ability to have their own way to sustain food and the access to food. Look at water, the way that water is being attacked, water infrastructure. And so there's a couple of things that I think is important for us to take a look at. First and foremost, what does the process look like? Gaza has been under siege long before October 7th. How did doctors function in Gaza? How did hospitals develop? Well, what I can tell you is that our Palestinian colleagues on the ground in Gaza, like Dr. Adnan Bursh, who was tortured to death, who we mentioned in the introduction, did this incredible job, their sheer will of pushing forward healthcare in Gaza. These doctors and nurses and first responders that you see in Gaza are world class. I've been going to Gaza since 2009. I can tell you, and I'm a assistant program director here in the United States. So I work with trainees and medical students and colleagues. The quality of physicians and nurses in Gaza is incredible. Incredible. These are phenomenal, phenomenal care providers. I mean, the way that they approach the job that they have had to do long before October 7th is incredibly heroic. And I think that's something that I really want to emphasize at the beginning. The second thing that's important to recognize, getting stuff into Gaza has always been hard. Always been hard. So, for example, if you look at, there is a report published by the World Health Organization, and it categorizes what's happening in healthcare in Palestine as medical apartheid. What do they mean by that? What they mean is that when you are trying to bring in a CT scanner or a spare part or an oxygen delivery mechanism, so something that you can deliver oxygen to somebody, if you've seen these tanks that people can carry around, the denial rates have been as high as 70 to 75% long before October 7th. What's the overarching goal here? After October 7th, I think there are some critical moments that took place that told us that there were, first of all, that the Israeli military would be able to act with impunity when it came to the healthcare system. The first, I think all of us remember, in October, late October 2023, Al-Ma'madani Ahli Baptist Hospital was struck by the Israelis. And there were hundreds of casualties and injured. Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta was working at Al-Ahli Hospital at the time. And if you remember, even President Biden, his immediate reaction was, this is not something that's acceptable. This should have been a red line for the way that the Israelis are prosecuting this attack on life. But instead what we saw was silence, and we allowed Israeli propaganda to fill the air, to suggest, oh, maybe it was a rocket from this Palestinian group, or the numbers are not as high as they're supposed to be. And this narrative has persisted from that moment, early in October 2023. That was the domino effect. Al-Ahli got hit, then Al-Shifa got surrounded in November, then Al-Awda, then Al-Quds, then Al-Nasr, then Al-Aqsa, then European Gaza Hospital. I was at Nasr Hospital in January of 2024 when the Israeli military surrounded the hospital with tanks. All they had to do at this moment, in January 2024, was release a tweet or a post, now that it's X, saying, we think a rocket was fired from Nasr Medical Complex. As somebody who was sleeping and living in Nasr, this is a total lie. But nobody even pushed back on this. And suddenly, this false premise to raid this major hospital, the largest hospital in the south of Gaza, to be surrounded by the Israeli military and over weeks get raided and destroyed. I mean, these are things you all know, but I want to tell you about what's happening inside of these walls. There were people there. This was a hospital that could normally accommodate 300 patients that had well over 1,000. I could not walk in the hallway of Nasib without bumping into somebody who had been displaced by the Israelis. I was watching children who should have been in school hanging out in the hallways of these hospitals, playing Ring Around the Rosie. I was given a tour of the pediatric department and saw the room of Dunya Abu Muhsin, a 12-year-old girl whose house in Khan Yunis had been bombed and lost her entire family. And she miraculously survived despite her leg being blown off. And I went to the room and there was this empty corner in a hospital that's packed. Every inch is occupied by a human being. This corner of this room in the pediatric area was left empty. I asked the nurse, I said, why is this spot empty? And she said, this is the corner of Dunya. I said, what happened to Dunya? And they said, after she survived and she was recovering in this hospital, an Israeli tank fired a shell, blew through the window of the hospital, striking Dunya and killing her. 2 weeks after her family had been killed. And I sat there not knowing how to respond, thinking this is what they mean when they say the healthcare system is being attacked. Dunya's being killed, a 12-year-old who's supposed to be recovering. And the nurse said something to me that to this day still bothers me. She said it was a rahmah, it was mercy that Dunya was killed. I didn't understand. I mean, how could she say that? I thought it was the gravest injustice. And she said, you know, in her last and final days, Dunya was becoming withdrawn and increasingly depressed. She started to process that she lost her mom and dad and her sisters and her brothers. She was alone in this world. And she stopped eating. She stopped getting out of bed to do physical therapy. And she said, the nurse said, now she's heavenly reunified with her family. And all I could feel was shame. How could we let that happen? How could we fail Dunya in this tragic way? And how many times has that story been repeated over the last 22 months? And so it's not just about hospitals that are being attacked and are now partially functioning. It's the erasure of that society in a devastating way, that we are causing human beings to suffer in a very dramatic fashion. Do you know what it's like to show up to a hospital after a bomb goes off and had to be laid on the floor as you're bleeding out? Looking up into the ceiling as there are 20 other Palestinians around you? Why is that? How could that continue to take place time in and time out? It's because there is no accountability. And so whether it's the first responders in Rafah showing up trying to help somebody being gunned down by the Israeli military, or it's Dunya in a hospital bed, or it's the doctors that I worked with, Dr. Nahid and Dr. Mahmoud, who are still in Israeli dungeons after being abducted from that hospital in February, every aspect of life is being attacked. So let's try to summarize this in an accurate way so that when we talk to lawmakers or as we try to organize and as we try to reach out, what's actually happening when we say the healthcare system is being attacked? First and foremost, go to the border near Gaza. Go to the border of Palestine and look at the trucks that are carrying anesthetics, antibiotics, Band-Aids, IV fluids, gloves. They are stuck at this border and they are not getting in any reasonable fashion. That's the first part of a healthcare system being attacked. Second, watch as these hospitals are being converted into targets by fighter jets, F-35s that are supplied by this country, and drones. And as soldiers, ground troops, start to surround these hospitals. Third, watch as somebody like Dr. Marwan Sultan, an Indonesian hospital director and one of 2 cardiologists in the north, finish his shift, go back home, and then get hit with an Israeli missile as soon as he gets home, killing him and his family. So the leadership of these hospitals and the hospital infrastructure is being targeted, attacked. Dr. Adnan Bush, abducted, tortured to death, left naked in Aufar prison. Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, director of Kamal Adwan, one of the only pediatric hospitals in the north of Gaza abducted. This is somebody who wrote 2 op-eds in the New York Times, who did interviews daily with media all over the world, being abducted by an Israeli military, having to walk up to an Israeli tank wearing his white coat. His son being killed 1 month before in the courtyard of the hospital by an Israeli missile. He had to bury his son in the compound of the hospital. He's somebody who, when they showed up in prison and were able to get a camera on him after not hearing from him for 2 months, they said, oh, why did you do whatever? I don't even want to repeat the claims because they're so bogus, I don't want to give them the light of day. But he said, what are you talking about? The hospital barely had walls. I'm not going to leave the children who were in the ICU. What am I supposed to do with them? The next point of this, when these hospitals have been raided, safe passage was not afforded to these healthcare workers and their patients. I worked with a nurse at Nasser who fled from a Rantisi hospital in the north, in Gaza City. He worked in the pediatric ICU. Some of you have seen these horrifying images of what happened at Rantisi. The hospital was forced to be displaced by the Israeli military. And the Red Cross had told the healthcare workers that they would be able to evacuate the patients and that they should leave the hospital now. These patients were never evacuated, and the children in the incubators died. The electricity was cut off, and they were forced to die alone. A miserable, suffocating death. They were not even aware of the world that they had been born into. How many times has that happened in Gaza? So the traditional protections that are supposed to be afforded to healthcare workers, to hospitals, to first responders, gone outside of the window. And the last 2 things I'll mention is the lack of accountability that happens when a hospital is destroyed, when a healthcare worker is killed, when a first responder is subjected to a double tap, a triple tap, a quadruple tap. At Nasser Hospital 2 weeks ago, we saw what happened. Every single person in this room saw first responders and journalists go up to the hospital on the 4th floor where there's the ICU and the surgery department, and another Israeli missile hit that area, killing 20 people. They say that there were 4 separate missiles on Nasser Hospital at that time. And there is no justification for that sort of attack. But there's been no accountability. Who will bring the perpetrators to justice? Somebody made that call. Somebody made that decision. Somebody said, here's the green light, attack those people. Who is going to sit here and prosecute that? There's been no accountability. And so when you look at the healthcare system in Gaza, it's no different than any other aspect of life. And the final thing I'll say, as I wrap up, is there's something called deconfliction that exists in war zones. And I want to give you an example from the United States where they did not uphold deconfliction. It allows humanitarian actors to show up to hospitals, to provide food, and they're supposed to be afforded safe passage. In Afghanistan, during the war on Afghanistan by the United States military, there was a Doctors Without Borders hospital in Kunduz. And the American military hit the hospital. It seemed to be an error, who knows? I mean, nobody really ever investigated this. But the Americans changed the way that they do deconfliction in these war zones. When it comes to Israel, especially in the last 22 months, they've always violated this principle of deconfliction, where humanitarian actors and doctors and hospitals can function without being attacked by a military, by a sophisticated military with precision missiles. But the Israelis have purposely made sure that this system is failing. And I'm just going to give 3 quick examples, and you realize how it's everything. First and foremost, everybody remembers the World Central Kitchen attack. Realize that the World Central Kitchen as an organization coordinated with the Israeli military, provided their coordinates of where they will be leaving from, how many vehicles they will be using, marking their vehicles, who is in these vehicles, the ID numbers of the people in the vehicles, what time they will leave, anticipated route, the road that they will be taking. And this convoy for the World Central Kitchen was hit 3 separate times. Second example, Oxfam, known UK humanitarian organization, in Khan Yunis, in November 2024, 4 water engineers, Palestinian, Ghazawi water engineers, were given permission by the Israeli military to go and repair water infrastructure. They provided the coordinates, they provided the names of the people, their ID numbers, when they will be leaving, where they will be going, what equipment they will have with them, when they will be arriving, and when they expect the entire job to be finished. All 4 of them assassinated by the Israeli military after getting these permissions. Final example, the story of Hind Rajab, the 2 paramedics, Ahmed and Yusuf, hopped in their ambulance, got permission. We're told this is our car, this is where we're going to go, we are going to get Hind, this is the time we are leaving, here's who we are, we work for the Palestinian Red Crescent. And when they were 50 meters away from the car of Hind Rajab, an Israeli missile struck and killed both of them. These are across time and space. There is a purposeful attempt by the Israeli military to make sure life cannot exist. And every single traditional norm that had existed for decades has been ignored. But it's not just that they violated these norms, it's that there has been no accountability. And I feel that that's where all of us in this room can step up and rise to the occasion. That's where we can make an impact, is to confront the perpetrators of these injustices in a way that they cannot rest without seeing us, without us showing them the pictures of Ahmed and Yusuf and Hind and Dr. Nahid and Dr. Mahmoud and Dr. Marwan al-Sultan and all of the people who have perished over the last 22 months. It's the best way that we can honor everybody that's been killed, and it's the only way that we'll be able to achieve accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tawhid. You make such a valid point here about one in which what we are witnessing and how we are seeing it. And I've been hearing this term for many months, maybe since the beginning, about how we are bearing witness. We as the people that are seeing this, watching it on our live screens, you as a physician who's been able to go to Gaza, you're bearing witness. And as a result to that, we're coming back and we're going to The Hague. We have these testimonies. We're going to our congressmen. We're showing up wherever we are to show the evidence and the witness that we have and the case against Israel and their pervasive attack against our people. And so my next question is for you, Dr. Karama. You are one of the founders of the Doctors Against Genocide, along with Dr. Nadad. And groups like yours and others, such as Healthcare Workers for Palestine, highlight the critical role that doctors, nurses, advanced provider practitioners abroad can play in drawing attention to genocide. Too often, advocacy is channeled narrowly through legislative routes that can be slow, symbolic, or ultimately fall short in addressing the urgency of mass atrocity. Can you speak about more of the kinds of advocacy that DAG has taken up against genocide and how you view the role of healthcare workers in shaping a struggle that goes beyond legislative advocacy and into more impactful forms of action?
Thank you so much, Maysa. Thank you for inviting us for the People's Conference. We are very proud to be here. This is a fantastic space for community solidarity and building energy for the fight ahead. And it was a pleasure hearing Thaer as usual. And thank you for your question. So my name is Karama Hawash Kumerli. I'm a pediatric neurologist. And I co-founded Doctors Against Genocide with Dr. Jbour out of necessity and out of our frustration with the role of the medical community in combating war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. We have actually started the idea of Doctors Against Genocide way before October 7th. And it is because both of us have grown in Palestine, in the West Bank, under occupation. And we started realizing that the outcome of the violation of the human rights of Palestinians will only lead to genocide. Genocide is sort of almost like a medical pathology and medical disease that thrives on dehumanization, racism, classification, ghettoization, violence, and the final stage is extermination. And just by growing up in Palestine, we have experienced discrimination, we have experienced racism, we have experienced checkpoints, house demolitions. We experienced that students who graduate from high school and get accepted to the best colleges are not allowed to leave. We have experienced all kinds of tier system that affects us, where the West Bank people are different from Gaza people. And there is this, the apartheid roads that we had to walk on and drive on as Palestinians. And over the past 4 years, actually even past the 10 years, there has been an escalation of violence on Gaza. 2014 was one extreme violation of the civilians in Gaza with massive killing. And this kept repeating as if Israel is testing the ground for more. And it didn't need much of an excuse to implement a final solution that is ongoing in front of our eyes. So again, founding Doctors Against Genocide came out of necessity. Also, we did our research, and what we found is that genocide is responsible for more death than pandemics worldwide. Genocide over the past 2 centuries have been responsible for 40% of the total genocides that have been counted over the past 2,000 years. That tells us that even though we enjoy probably a higher standard of living and more wealth worldwide, we are also experiencing more brutal genocides and more brutal violation of human rights and health. We are also experiencing more weaponized systems around us in the way of surveillance, in the way of massive weapons of destruction, and in the ways of the technology that is coming from our top institutions like MIT, Harvard, Georgia Tech. Every drone, every quadcopter has been developed by scientists who are walking amongst us. So who else can speak up against genocide better than the medical community? The medical community is able to say with precision, this is a genocide and it should be taken seriously. And that is why we founded Doctors Against Genocide. And we have been working with a lot of different groups like Healthcare Workers for Palestine, even larger, bigger, more established groups like MSF and Amnesty International, who have been slower than us in calling things by their names, but they are starting to catch up. And our goal from founding Doctors Against Genocide is to give everyone who is a medical professional the language and the ability to speak up, to advocate, and to play a role. Apathy feeds genocide. Impunity feeds genocide. When we do not speak up, it is as if we are complicit, because we give permission for the genocide perpetrators to continue what they are doing. And we are seeing that from every medical organization, medical association, medical society that has not been speaking up, and these are the majority. And this is unacceptable. I am very happy to tell all of you that we continue to grow as a medical organization, and we continue to have more members and more advocacy efforts. Every month, at least once a month, even more, we stand shoulder to shoulder in Washington, D.C., in the Senate and the Congress, and we visit our elected officials, and we demand the end of genocide. In the process, we have been all arrested, including you, Dr. Stein. So we have also many other members who are here in the audience have also been arrested just for saying, I stand against genocide as a medical professional. We are very proud of you all because you embody what it means to be a doctor, a nurse, a healthcare worker against genocide. One thing about what we do is that we center the voices of the people who are affected. We have weekly webinars, and during these weekly webinars, we speak to the heroes in Gaza. We hear from them every day, every second, every minute. We are terrified for their safety. Every day we check our messages, check on this doctor or that doctor. Did they read our last message? Did they respond to us? Are they alive? Are they hungry? Are they starving? Are their families well? Every single day. This is what it means to bear witness and to be in solidarity. Our friends in Gaza say to us that they come to feel solidarity when we have these webinars, and that means a lot to us. And it means to us that we should continue. I do not want to overestimate our role, but it is our duty. It is our duty to continue to bear witness. It is our duty to hold the perpetrators in the eye and tell them you are responsible and you are going to be held accountable, and do everything we can to end this genocide. As Palestinians, we extend this to all other communities. To every community that is affected by genocide, we promise we will speak up and we will fight against the violation of your human rights, whoever you are, and we will center you. And we are doing this with our actions, not just with our words, because we are in solidarity with our colleagues in Sudan, in Congo, in Rohingya, in Yemen, and anywhere where our voices are needed.
Thank you. You know, you mentioned many of us probably have been arrested in this room. And I'm reminded of something a speaker said yesterday about how we know it's working because the repression is getting more intense. And so we shouldn't be afraid of the repression, and we shouldn't allow it to keep us from speaking up. And I commend the Doctors Against Genocide for showing up month after month in the halls of Congress, not letting them rest. For every single one of you who've shown up at our senators' houses, who've shown up at their offices, and continue to remind them what is going on in Palestine. So thank you. This question is for you, Dr. Nidal. In the past few months, the occupation has tightened the siege on Gaza, effectively stripping hospitals from critical life-saving medical supplies and fuel. Nidal, you have been key and instrumental to keeping communication lines open with doctors in Palestine by maintaining these weekly DAG calls that sheds light on what is happening. How can we, as healthcare workers or allies, leverage our positions to push back against the normalization of attacks on medical infrastructures, both politically and within our institutions?
Yeah, thank you, Maisa. Marhaba, salam, everyone. Thank you, my colleagues. Thank you, everyone, for being here. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the real heroes of this universe, the people of Gaza. The men of Gaza. the women of Gaza, the children of Gaza, the grandfathers of Gaza, the grandmothers, the freedom fighters, shout out to our heroes in the medical community in Gaza. The real doctors, the real nurses, the real paramedics. Dr. Ahmed Al-Farra, we see you. Dr. Muhammad Saqar, Dr. Abu Rish, Dr. Al-Bursh, to the students, Azzululu, Hamza, all your colleagues, all of you, you are our real heroes. You are our inspiration. We see you, we hear you. And to our number one hero, Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. We will not rest until you are free. You and your colleagues. Free Dr. Hussam now. Free Dr. Hussam now. Free Dr. Hussam and his colleagues now. Free Dr. Hussam and his colleagues now. Stop the genocide. And to our colleagues here, to all the doctors, all the healthcare workers who said no, to all of those who refused, to all those who served, to all those who sacrificed, to all those who joined us, thank you. Thank you. We say no to genocide, because genocide is the crime of all crimes, and fighting genocide is medicine. Fighting genocide is medicine. Liberation is medicine. Freedom is medicine. Freedom is medicine. This is our job. This is what we went to school for. To protect life, to free people. We are practicing medicine. This is not politics. This is not propaganda. This is our oath. We swore an oath to protect life, every life, wherever it is, whether it's a black child in Detroit, or an immigrant child in LA, or a young Palestinian child, or a raped girl in Congo, or a starved child in Sudan. We will not sit until they're all safe, until they're all free, until we dismantle the structures of genocide, because genocide is anti-life, anti-medicine. And if we are true healthcare workers, we're true doctors, we should be the first one. We should be the leaders in fighting it. That's why we are inviting all our colleagues in the United States, in the West, all over the world to join us, to join the movement, to uphold the real oath and the real mission for medicine. Because otherwise we fail. Like the American Medical Association, the major medical association who failed themselves. Shame on them. Shame on them. They failed medicine. They failed their mission. They failed us. They made medicine look terrible because they are not just silent. They are complicit. They are enabling. They are aiding the genocide with their silence, with their complicity. And we, as the true doctors, the true healthcare workers, say no. And we will continue to say no, because This is our job. That's why we need to mobilize more to all doctors who joined Doctors Against Genocide, the healthcare workers for Palestine, here in the United States, all over the world, to all of them who are in the streets, in the hall of power, trying to do everything they can to stop this. We thank you. The Palestinian people thank you. But also remember, Gaza is the compass. And Gaza is freeing all of us from fear, from complicity. It's exposing all the criminals, all the systems of injustice, all the systems of capitalism, the exploitation, the supremacy that is eating all of us. Gaza is exposing their war machines, war profiteers, AI systems that is going to be perfected in Gaza and to be deployed everywhere else in the world. And it's gonna create or make all of us, the people of conscience, the people of the world, to be disposable people at the mercy of the warmongers and the mega rich who are owning these systems. They want the whole world to be owned by these few supremacists, whether they are Jewish supremacists or Christian supremacists, Christian evangelicals or mega rich. It is time or never. We need to mobilize. If we wait 5 years, 10 years, their system will be so strong that we, the people, cannot fight it. So we need to take the thrones of power from them. And we, the people, need to create a better world and better humanity for everyone. For us, for our children, for our planet, for the future, for the generations. But when it comes to Gaza, unfortunately, Gaza cannot wait much longer. Gaza does not have another year or 2 or 10 to strategize for us to build plans. Gaza needs to be saved now. It saved all of us, liberated all of us. It is time for us to pay back and stop the criminals, the perpetrators, the child murderers. And we all know who they are. We all know who they are, whether they are in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Washington, in Germany, in Europe. We all know them. We all know them. They need to be locked up. They need to be taken out. They need to be neutralized to save children, to save children, to save the humanity. We are not saying this out of hate. We are saying this out of love for the children, love for life, love for humanity where every life is equal. We only hate the war criminals, the child murderers. We need to act now. Speaking up alone is not enough. It's two years old. We have been speaking up for 2 years. Now it's time to escalate and to act and to get the murderers out. Save the children. Thank you.
The people united will never be defeated.
The people united will never be defeated.
The people united will never be defeated.
The people united will never be defeated. The people
United will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. Thank you, everyone.
Let Gaza live. Let Gaza live. Let Gaza live. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of your amazing words and all of the work that you've been doing for these past couple of years and making sure to keep the voices of Gaza alive. One thing I would like to ask all of you actually, and feel free to chime in whenever you'd like. What is the role and the obligation we have as healthcare workers? How do we approach our colleagues who've not just been silent, but unshaken by what is happening? We show up to work, we show up to our hospitals, our clinics, wherever we are, and it seems like everything is the status quo. Everything is going as it should, quote unquote. But nobody is talking about Gaza. And how do we approach this within even our own patients and within our administration to keep the voices of Gaza alive, to keep our fight continuing and ongoing? And how do we shift that needle?
I can take this. Before we go to this question, I want to introduce a special guest and a member of Dr. Genocide that we are all proud of, Dr. Jill Stein. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming. We are partnering with Dr. Jill Stein as an initiative with Doctors Against Genocide and many other organizations here and internationally for an important initiative and action to mobilize the international system to take on the genocide, to take it head on, and to intervene where the United States and their veto and their complicit administration have failed. Dr. Jill Stein, thank you for joining us. If you want to please speak about this initiative.
Yeah, okay.
We do have time, and we will definitely, and if you want to answer this question, please, I would love to hear your response to this.
I would love to, you know, in follow-up to Nadal's words about how we are bearing witness and we're transforming the moral landscape, but we are doing more than that. We're not just bearing witness. We really are changing realities on the ground. In the court of public opinion, we have won. We have won. And it's important to know that there is a decision coming up in the United Nations. A year ago, the General Assembly, which is like the democratic part as opposed to the authoritarian part in the Security Council, where the US dominates. In the General Assembly, a year ago, they gave Israel 1 year to comply with the rulings of the International Court of Justice to end genocide, end occupation, end ethnic cleansing. And at that time, the General Assembly said Israel had 1 year and then they were going to face consequences. Well, that date is coming up. That is around the corner. It's September 18th. Starting on that date and even before, the UN can impose severe and serious policies on Israel, including comprehensive sanctions, military embargo, stripping Israel of its credentials in the General Assembly, as was done to South Africa, and sending in a peace force to protect civilians and distribute aid and food. This could happen tomorrow. This must happen tomorrow. There is a movement which we are building together to assert our influence as civil society, because the votes are there. More than 2/3 of the UN already supports creating these measures for Israel. Our job is simply to shine light on this decision, to let our representatives know, and it's not the US, because we're not going to change the US, but the US is outnumbered, and this decision does not go to the Security Council. So we have immunity to the US veto in moving ahead. So it's important for people to know, to tell our friends, our colleagues everywhere, we are that social mobilization right now to compel our leaders to hold the line for Palestine in the United Nations. And I'll just mention one website quickly. This is lifelineforpalestine.com. lifelineforpalestine.com. This is this movement coming together very quickly to seize the moment here, because we have an incredible transformative opportunity to actually stop the genocide and the starvation and the famine and the bombings. We could do that now. We have the votes to do it. We have a mechanism to do it that the US and Israel cannot interfere with. So go to lifelineforpalestine.com, because together we are unstoppable.
Thank you, Dr. Stein. That's follow it, and we are going to mobilize with all our power and with different societies, civil societies and civil institutions to work to this end. On the 23rd of September, there is a protest in New York City that is aimed at the United Nations. We will put the flyer for that in a little bit. And I want to answer Maisa's question about what do we do when we are in complicit institutions that are silencing, censoring, or not doing anything, or pretending that nothing is happening. It is not an easy thing, because we have been living this for over 2 years. And as many of you, I am in a big institutions where it is very difficult for me to even say good morning and answer a question, how are you, without talking about Gaza. Because that is what I think about every single day. The images of children who are decimated are in the back of my mind, imprinted on my retina every single second. So it is very hard to pretend that nothing is happening when children and whole families are killed with our tax dollars. But that is not the whole story. The whole story is these institutions do not represent us. We represent ourselves, and we organize and we build community. And we build it by leading by example, by inspiring others to join us, by being very clear on what we believe in, and by showing people how to do it. It is no accident that Healthcare Workers for Palestine is growing so fast, and it has so many chapters all over the world. It is no accident that Doctors Against Genocide is growing. We see people wearing Doctors Against Genocide t-shirts randomly in the streets. It is because people want a platform, they want to do something, and it is on us to provide that and organize and build the movement, and ultimately we will dominate. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to shift just gears just a little bit. I want to ask you, Dr. Taher, a question. I'm sorry. Dr. Thaed. Every patient who leaves Gaza for care carries with them the weight of separation, since not a single nuclear family has been able to evacuate together. For families forced into unimaginable situations, seeking healing in the United States or Europe, while living with trauma, grief, and separation, what have you witnessed in terms of how this shapes their recovery? How do you, as a physician, hold space for both their physical healing and the deeper wounds of displacement and forced separation?
Yeah, I'm glad we get to talk about this. I mean, this is really important to cover. It's devastating. I mean, this is a major, major issue. I think I'll say one thing about the names, by the way. All of our names have really profound meanings and a deep connection to Palestine. You know, look up what Nidal means later. Yeah, but Thair, Nidal, Karama. Sorry, not Jill, but but these names have a you know, they're so deep, but you can look them up later. I won't. We'll give her a new name. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so this is, and one thing I'll say about the previous question too, because we're in the hall of Anas Sharif. one of the major things we have to do, something that you guys are doing with your Sunday sessions as well, is we're documenting and publishing what's happening on the ground. Part of what made Anas so dangerous was the fact that his voice was speaking to the world consistently and constantly. That's why he was assassinated. That's why him and his colleagues were assassinated. And I will say, you know, I think it's important to mention this too, because sometimes we can also dehumanize Palestinians when we overemphasize the superhero title. Anas's assassination, along with his colleagues, somebody needs to be held accountable for that, because it was a grave injustice. Was he a hero? Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. But what happened was tragic and devastating and backbreaking and soul-crushing. Anas was a father of two. Anas was a husband, was the son. His father was killed in the genocide. He buried his father. He had a will that was released. Anas broke down when he saw his people starving to death because he felt that same hunger. Anas called to the international world asking for protections because he was being threatened. And so it's tough being in a hall named after him because of how the entire world failed him. And you know, I bring this back because we failed these families as well. This country is no stranger to separating families, but the way that things are happening in Gaza is so cruel that we have to get through that first superficial layer. I want you to be aware of this process. First and foremost, we do not want to remove Palestinians from Palestine, right? We do not want to do that. That is never ever the priority. Unfortunately, the way that the Israelis have conducted this assault on life has cut a traditional route that used to exist. From Gaza, pediatric patients, people with cancer, people with heart disease used to be able to be treated by Palestinian doctors in Al-Maqasid, which is East Jerusalem, or Al-Muttala in East Jerusalem, or Ramallah Hospital, or Al-Istishari. All of these hospitals, Palestinian doctors could still take care of Palestinians. The Israelis, after October 7th, tried to sever the ties. Think about the insidious nature of what that does. Think about what's trying to happen. Karama mentioned it too, kind of separating these Palestinians, West Bank from Gaza, from East Jerusalem, from 1948, from the Palestinians in Lebanon and Syria and Jordan. And so there's something that's happening there that we also need to fight back against. The second part of this is, long before October 7th, getting a permit to get medical care was very difficult. Automatically, a third of people were getting rejected by the Israelis. It didn't matter, were you a child? Were you an elderly person? Was it for cancer? Or did you need emergency surgery? It did not matter. A third of these people were automatically rejected. Well, what about these patients who need a companion? A child cannot go and get medical treatment alone. An elderly person needs somebody, a caretaker, to help them. Half of those people were getting rejected. So getting medical care was a part of the occupation and apartheid long before October 7th. After October 7th, the way that things have manifested in Gaza, we now have 15,000 people on a medical evacuation list who need urgent evacuation. So this is not the female patient who has a lump in her breast that could be cancer. This is not the person with heart disease who gets chest pains, meaning that his heart muscle is dying every day that he feels those chest pains. This is not the person that needs physical rehabilitation. These are urgent cases that if they do not evacuate, they will die. That's what's on this list of 15,000. We know that 700 people up until now have died waiting. If you remember, there was a father early on who was at Rafah at the border who had a request from a doctor in Gaza saying he needs to get medical treatment abroad. He looked at a camera for Al Jazeera and he said, "My son died." And he ripped up the medical transfer form and he told the world, he asked the world, "Are you happy now? He's dead." That is the reality of being on one of these medical evacuation lists. And what happens is, in a case that I was personally involved in, for a young girl who was injured in a bombing, 7 years old, lost her older sister and her younger brother, an 11-year-old and an 18-month-old. And her father lost both of his legs in this bombing, and she had her kneecap blown off. And so she needed specialty care. She was at Al-Ahli getting care, and then Al-Ahli became surrounded by the hospital. And her mom was telling me that they had to walk from Al-Ahli, the north, Gaza City, to the south to get to Nasser Hospital into European Gaza Hospital so that she could be processed for transfer. When they got to the south, they told the family, they said, the only way that she can go abroad is if we keep the father here and the mother can go with her. So of course this family was forced to separate in that moment because the father would never get an approval process. Even the mother was coming into question. The second part of the process I want everybody to be familiar with is many people in Gaza have never left Gaza. Have never left. Many people have been born there and have been there forever. So many of them don't have travel documents. And so getting a person a travel document in Gaza is another bureaucratic hurdle that wastes time that we don't have. The third thing is most of them were going to Egypt before the border was stormed on May 6th, 2024. Egypt's medical system, healthcare system, this is something that even the Egyptians admit. They did not have the same medical care capacity as even the care in Gaza, because we mentioned the doctors are phenomenal in Gaza. In Egypt, they did not have the same capabilities. So people were arriving in Egypt and using these hospitals as hotel rooms because they were not getting care, they were not getting treatment, they were not getting specialty care. So I was present and I was able to evacuate one of these children to the United States. She came to the United States. There have been less than 100 cases that have come to the United States out of the 5,000 children and 15,000 people on the medical evacuation list. And in fact, even more shame because the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who has been sidelined in the Trump administration, decided that he wants to feel good about himself by canceling the visas for children that could come here and for going after medical students who are protesting genocide and trying to go after organizations like Heal Palestine and PCRF. And I see Rami and Abir here who are volunteers of Heal Palestine. So he's canceled those visas. So the patient that I brought to the United States, we have a huge line of them that are no longer able to come. The other thing that happens to them as they cross the border out of Gaza, the World Health Organization gives them something called informed consent. It's a paper. Do you know what that paper says? By agreeing to leave Gaza, you also agree to assume the risk that you might never be able to return. People have to forfeit the right of return because the World Health Organization cannot guarantee their return because the Israelis answer to nobody. They answer to no one. And so this process, this mother and her child have to decide to leave Gaza, leave their husband behind, leave their grandparents, their childhood home, everything that they knew in terms of their world, and say, okay, well, I have to take this medical care. This is what we are forcing the people, the Palestinians in Gaza, the decisions that they have to make. It is a very cruel process, and it is only getting worse, harder and harder. And so one practical step I will say, I just wanted people to understand really how evil this process is. It's very, very evil. So, one thing I will say is, one of the things that we can do, a practical step, is to fight back against some of these very cruel decisions, like Marco Rubio's decision to suspend these visas. On what grounds are you suspending a 5-year-old who had their legs blown off by American bombs and American fighter jets from them getting care in the United States that costs the American taxpayer $0? Not a single tax dollar has gone to any of the Palestinian patients in the United States getting medical care. It has come from people like you and us. That is who is paying for this care. So we can continue to support these organizations. We can continue to have our congressmen and our senators ask the State Department to reverse their decision. And we can continue to support the organizations that are coming under attack, like Heal Palestine, like PCRF, like all of the organizations that are coming under attack. And the final point that I will mention about this, again, is supporting Palestinian institutions on the ground is one of the most incredible acts of solidarity, right? These Palestinian doctors and nurses and hospitals, we can support them, right? I don't care that David Lammy from the UK says he wants to take in more Palestinian children. Well, how about you say that we want Palestinian children to go to a Jerusalem hospital and then go back to Gaza, and we want to implement a ceasefire? The only solution right now to all of the medical problems and the catastrophe is a cessation of the Israeli aggression on Gaza and the West Bank and all of Palestine. That is the only medical treatment that will solve all the problems that we're dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, what an incredible incredible lineup and speakers. I'm really honored to be able to be up here, and I want to just end with this. Dr. Mahmoud Abu Nujaila, a doctor who was killed in a strike in Al-Auda Hospital on November 21st, 2023. 1 month prior to his killing, he wrote a message on the surgical board. If you remember, it read, "Whoever stays until the end will tell the story. We did what we could. Remember us." You will be remembered far more for than just doing what you could. You will be remembered for showing the world what resilience and courage looks like, for reminding the people that we must continue to stand and fight for our liberation struggles. You will be remembered for your bravery in broadcasting to the world what the media refuses to show us, and for standing by your patients, refusing to leave them. You will be remembered for pulling the babies out of the rubble and lifting their spirits when you could. You showed us, the Palestinians in diaspora, what life and death looks like, what a shaheed looks like, what a fida'i looks like, and what freedom looks like. And when the smoke settles and the ground no longer shakes, we will remain, and we will be there to help you rebuild Gaza. Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free! Free Palestine! Gaza! Gaza, you will rise! Gaza! Gaza, you will rise! Palestine will never die! Palestine will never die! Thank you, everybody.
Give it up for our amazing panelists one more time, everybody. We're now going to take our lunch break. We'll come back for our final plenary of the day on Palestine today at 3 o'clock here in the Anas al-Sharif room. We need everybody to clear out now so that we can set up for our next plenary and continue moving forward in the program. Thank you, everybody, so much. Let's get our lunches. Let's remain energized and free Palestine.
أنا جاية